It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick-start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, lads and lasses of all ages, welcome to the show. It is Monday, July 6th, 2026, and it is time to get nerdy. Welcome to episode 383 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the multiverse. I am Mac, one of your hosts, and I am joined by my friend in gaming commentary, my comrade in gaming commentary, who knows everything about the news when I know nothing. We call him Mr. Nice Guy 425, and we are going to talk about everything as it relates to video gaming, from news to lawsuits, trivia, and everything in between. But first, Lom, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing super well, man. I had a fantastic weekend.
Nice.
Celebrated the birth of our nation this weekend, and had some really good food with really good people, and fireworks and pool and all that kind of stuff, Mac. Went to the parade. My oldest was in the parade this year locally. With his band,
like marching band parade.
Marching band. So that was super fun, and it's funny because in those moments you're so happy, you're so excited, you almost want to like get their attention. And so we were talking about all kinds of crazy stuff we could do to get his attention. The kids were going to say, "That's my brother."
Yeah.
I was going to run out and give him a hug in the middle of the marching band. We thought about bringing water guns. There were a lot of ideas. We ultimately decided to not do any of that.
Sure.
And just let him have his moment, like responsible people. But the discussion was hilarious, Mac.
Oh, I bet.
How was your weekend? What's new with you, man?
Dude, a lot of the same notes, but obviously a slightly different tune over here. Got invited out to a 4th of July barbecue. Enjoyed that. Had a friend down from Portland to hang out over the weekend.
Nice.
Had company, had a good time. Watched a lot of cool things. Didn't play as many video games. It's weird. I don't have that many couch co-op games in my Steam library, and we were just busy catching up and hanging out that didn't get a chance to do much of that, which is okay because I made up for it with plenty of good other stuff. Didn't actually go out to see any fireworks though, even though it could have. Mostly just had a relaxing weekend frankly. But yeah, and no marching band either. I feel like I really missed out.
Are private fireworks legal where you're at?
Yes.
Like, could you have lit your own off if you wanted to? Okay.
I absolutely could have. However, I probably wouldn't have done it where I live. Call it the old desert rat in me, but like I'm very hesitant to light off fireworks in an area that isn't like completely paved, just because I'm like, it's probably not going to catch a forest fire here where I live. That's probably not going to happen. There's lots of water out here compared to where I used to live, where we used to live.
It's not dry.
That sort of like fire danger stuff is really baked deep. So I don't think...
You know what's interesting, Mac? One of my most embarrassing 4th of July stories, when I was living in Illinois, fireworks were legal where I was at. So I just went to like some local store and bought some fireworks, and I didn't really look at them very closely.
Sure.
Got home, and they were all smoke bombs. Like every single one. So I was expecting to put on like a safe, fun fireworks show.
Instead, you put on a smoke show. More so than you usually do.
More so than usual. I appreciate that. But yeah, dude, just my wife and I and the kids were expecting all this fun, and I opened it and I was like, oh no. And the whole time I was lighting them off, everyone was laughing hysterically. And it was a nightmare and a waste of money, but a fun memory.
Thank you for sharing that. There are at least 3 other people in the audience who feel comforted to know that they're not the only ones.
Others have done it. It happens. Well, Mac, on that note, I say we do what we do best and hop right up in that gaming news, man. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. What is new in video gaming, my friend?
Dude, there's a lot in video gaming, and we're going to lead off with one of the main stories, and then we're going to talk about another huge story later on in the show. But just so those who didn't know, this is episode 383 of Two Nerds in a Pod, nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. Mac, sad news for the industry today. This is on GameInformer.com. Xbox part ways with 5 studios, over 3,000 layoffs announced. Xbox has announced it is splitting from 5 of its development studios: Compulsion Games, Double Fine Productions, Ninja Theory, Undead Labs, and Arcane Studios, while announcing plans to reduce headcount by over 3,000 employees over the next several months. CEO Asha Sharma sent a lengthy message to the Xbox team detailing her previously announced plan for a quote-unquote reset of the brand and its operations in what she calls the most significant restructure in Xbox history. Quote, "Our business today is not healthy," Sharma writes. "We are operating at margins that are 3 to 10 times lower than comparable platform and publishing businesses. We entered Gen 9 with a smaller install base and higher cost structure. To grow, we bet on Game Pass, multi-platform, and the broader portfolio of content. While those businesses have created meaningful value, they did not grow at the pace we expected." I'm not going to read too much more of this quote, Mac. There's really no commentary around the sadness that I know we both feel about people losing their jobs. But for the future of Xbox, given the investment that they've put into things over the years and our discussions around that, like, are they sustainable? Are they going to have to completely pivot business-wise? Or will there just be 2 main competitors next gen, Nintendo and Sony?
You know, it's an interesting question. I sure hope not. But I do want to attack, if you will, the underlying premise here and just ask, what do we think of the statement that, like, you know, that they are doing, you know, numbers well below other things or other places or other platforms, that they're not making back the money that they've put in? I don't know as I necessarily take the claim at face value.
What do you mean?
I think that there is a tendency for people to, like, for example, right? We all know that there are numbers that certain companies are reporting, and those numbers seem very inflated numbers, things that dazzle the mind and are incredulous at best, like things that can't possibly be true. You know, certain companies' valuations, for example. And there is a certain extent to which, like, I wonder, is that statement, "We're not doing the kinds of numbers that other companies are doing," is that something that's, like, very cleverly worded and pinned to very specific things designed to make it sound like we had no choice but to cut 3,000 of you? Like, I'm just saying I'm very skeptical in the first instance of the claim being made that they have to cut.
Well, I don't think that she is lying. I think there's definitely some corporate talk here, right? But I mean, I saw another quote today that said the number of Xbox Game Pass subscribers had dipped again, right? Like, significantly. And so it's clear that they are struggling to keep consumers' attention.
Yeah.
But also, Mac, I think the best analogy I could use here is if you look at 2 houses, 2 American households, and let's say they both have the same household income, whatever that number is. One house cooks at home, they take road trips for vacation, they save a little bit of money, and they wear regular clothes. The other house has multiple luxury vehicles, takes 4 vacations a year, and, you know, has a much more expensive house. Both of those houses, even though they make the same amount of money, are going to be living significantly differently, and one is going to be much more tight than the other. And so because Microsoft put such a big investment in buying Bethesda, in buying Activision, in purchasing all of these big studios, now they need to have more profit to be able to sustain the lifestyle that they have built for themselves. And I think that's what's happening here, and I think that the turnaround wasn't as quick as they thought it would be, and now they're having to, or they're choosing to, lay people off.
Yeah, no. I think you're onto something, and it's something that we've flagged several times. For those of you who've been here, Lom was very kind to point out these sharp notions back when Bethesda was being bought. Questions that he posed about, like, I don't know, is it really worth all of that? And how are they going to recoup this sort of stuff? Credit where credit is due. I think you flagged this as being you know, an incoming train wreck for quite some time.
Well, and I don't think I'm a visionary, dude. Like, I
disagree. You are a visionary.
I just think that if they wanted to be able to succeed after they purchased all these studios, they needed to keep selling games for $60, and they maybe even needed to just make them exclusive. They probably thought that it would result in more people purchasing the games if they allowed them to be on PlayStation, and even in some cases on Nintendo. But the reality is, it's possible that making them exclusive, even though it would have been a very, very controversial move, could have resulted in more hardware sales as well. And certainly more Game Pass sales had they not been available on Sony and Microsoft or on Nintendo platforms. But that's just one guy from his armchair talking.
Sure. No, I hear what you're saying, and I think maybe more hardware sales would have helped. I don't know, because of course they never give us that kind of details, whether or not hardware was a loss leader, like those cheap chickens that they sell at
Costco.
Costco, yeah. We don't necessarily know for sure if those were the loss leaders or if that would help them recoup things. But I think you might be onto something, dude. Game Pass, great value, but they went really hard for that, and then when they raised prices, a lot of people jumped ship. I'm not sure why people jumped ship more recently on Game Pass. Any thoughts on that?
There were some bumps in price, and then they kind of dialed it back for a little bit, and then I think they bumped it back up. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I know that pricing definitely played a role. And then the announcement that future Call of Duties would no longer be available day one on Game Pass, and just some other things like that really made certain segments of the gaming population embrace Game Pass even more, I think is one of the big challenges. One of the other questions I have for you, because we're losing a lot of studios that are tied to some big games. What do you think this means for the futures of those games? And I know this is completely hypothetical, but a game like Starfield that had a rough launch and, in my opinion, had the possibility of becoming a great comeback story, now is potentially going to not be the focus due to loss of funds and them being spread too thin and them laying people off. Do you think they just completely abandon these? Or if it was you, would you continue to try to salvage something that could be the next No Man's Sky, the next Among Us? Like, what would Mac do if he was the CEO?
Lom, I thank you so much. Yes, they will abandon these and will not put anything into keeping them up, which is real unfortunate, especially because a lot of these things are likely to, once they've been abandoned for lack of funds, to keep them going, will then become a albatross where they're not bringing in money, so they will cut them entirely, cut the hosting, the DRM, the game will die to any extent that it needed constantly to phone home in order to be playable, which is a shame. If Mac was holding the reins, we weren't going to actively sell the game anymore. We would release some amount of the game so that people could still enjoy it. If I was in charge, ideally I would have done the thing that Nintendo did ages ago when the Wii U did not sell so well, and I, as the CEO, would have taken a big haircut so that we could try and keep some of these things more open. And ideally, I'd cut some of the COO and a couple of the other C-suite. We'll cut some of those things.
Mac hates high-paid people. He doesn't hate high-paid people, but he hates corporations.
If they were generating more than numbers, I think I would be more inclined toward them. It's been a while since I've seen somebody who actually got their hands dirty in a good way. So,
So let me ask you that, before we get it, because I don't want to get too much into what we're going to talk about for topic of the week, but
okay.
In terms of the future of Xbox,
yes.
And I kind of alluded to this, will it just be Sony and Nintendo next gen? But in all seriousness, do you think this affects the possibility of more hardware? Do they just say, you know what, it's going to be Game Pass going forward? Or with all of these layoffs and studio closures, clearly their big bet didn't work. Do we still see a next-gen Xbox?
It's very difficult, as we've learned from Valve trying to put out their Steam machine. It's really tough to get hardware out there right now, and for the foreseeable future it will be incredibly difficult to make your money back on hardware, so it'll have to be software focused, and unfortunately I just don't know what that kind of future looks like with fewer and fewer studios, because after all, they're the ones who make the software, and without the software this ship don't run.
Well, cool. How long have we been talking about this? Because I don't want to spend
only
too
10
much time.
minutes.
Only 10 minutes, so we got time for one or two more stories.
Yeah.
Let's just talk briefly about something that I just think is super interesting, and I think that you may as well. This is on Kotaku.com. Once again, we made it clear we do have, condolences to those who lost their jobs. I think that goes without saying. And we hope that they all land on their feet. Many talented people. And I almost hope that they kind of like get together, a handful of them, and form their own place. Some of the people from these studios. That'd be great. Well, on Kotaku.com, we got this story about the Cyberpunk trading card game, written by Luis Gutierrez. By the way, that last story was written by Marcus Stewart. I don't know if I mentioned that. So, here's the one on Kotaku. Trading card games can be a dime a dozen, and it's not uncommon for a game to come out and have its popularity die out immediately. Although it's still unreleased, the Cyberpunk 2077 trading card game developed by Weirdco and based on that game of the same name looks like it might be here to stay. I'm not saying that only because it was one of the fastest back Kickstarter campaigns, but because this author says, I got a hands-on preview of the upcoming game. From what I played, I was immediately drawn into what it has to offer. Mac, I won't even go into his experience, but, you know, the idea of trading card games based on specific games, based on things that were not originally in the trading card game universe. I know that you have played some games in the past. What do you think it's going to take for any game, Cyberpunk, The Witcher, whatever, to go from a Kickstarter to becoming something that is not necessarily as big a phenomenon as Magic or as Pokemon, but to be sustainable and to appeal to someone like you or I?
So I think really, rather than have me talk about this, we need our resident trading card game expert, Nemo.
He's not here.
Dang it.
Yeah, we should have brought him on today.
So we should have, anyway. No, I have played Magic the Gathering and a few other trading card games in the past. Someday people will make good on the promise. I think trading card games, in order for something to have like some longevity, there needs to be some amount of like fluidity in place for the card game, just from a mechanic standpoint. Like I always worry about a game where it's like, you know, you've got a certain power scale that you start off with, and then you got to top that with the next thing. Or at least you have to make sure that the new cards are useful. And that's like a new thing you've got to layer on and layer on and layer on. And then you've got situations where, like in Magic, you have whole sets that just can't even be used because they're just so out of sync with the power crawl or the power scale of new stuff. Anyway, I find the dynamics of that very interesting. So this is me just sort of like vamping because I don't have any good answers to the question.
No, these are good answers.
Like, I don't know what it takes.
These are good answers, and I think that balance is super important. I think that you raise a really good point there. I think that there needs to be, and by the way, for context, $7.5 million raised for this Kickstarter in just a couple hours. Wow. I don't know what it was at by the time it was done, but I mean, clearly there was a huge interest in this. I think there's a couple things that need to happen in order for a trading card game to be successful. I think number one, whether it's Cyberpunk or anything, there need to be continuous flow of new cards, right? You think about Hearthstone, a game I used to play quite a bit. They were continually putting out new cards. There were new sets, even though it was all online, and it kept people engaged, and people still play Hearthstone today. I may even hop back in. I kind of miss it. The other thing, I think, Mac, is a competitive scene. I think that trading card games are fun with just your friends at your local card shop, but I feel like in order for it to really be relevant, there has to be some goal. There has to be something other than just in your living room that you are shooting for. And so I think that's it. And then I think they should add a digital aspect to it so that you can play online and play against other people without having to always travel and get better to prepare for those tournaments. So those are the three things I think, and I'd love to see this succeed.
I hope as well. I think Cyberpunk 2077 had a rough launch. They stuck with it. It became a great game. Some people think it was one of the greats. Yeah. Glad to see more in that world going on.
Yeah, we'll leave it there for today. That has been our news for the week.
Nice guy. If I may interject, can I give us another quick news one? A bonus news one?
Do it, dude. Let's do it. Bonus news.
Let me give something else. I really didn't want it to pass. It's not going to be legalese, so, but it's still worth noting. We've been following the Stop Killing Games stuff for a while. They've got Assembly Bill 1921 that's in the California legislature. Last week, as you know, just before on Monday, they had they'd been going through all the steps, all the stages, and they wound up getting in front of the I've got it written right here, the Senate Business, Professions, and Economic Development Committee, which had 11 members, and at the end of their presentation, there were 4 yays to advance the Senate bill. There were 3 noes, and there were 4 abstentions. And so it did not pass the committee, which means that it stopped dead in its tracks there, because out of committee in the California legislature, at least, can't speak to all the state ones, an abstention is as good as a no. When it's on there, it does not count for a yay. Enthusiastic consent only is the thing there. But what I do want to point out is I want to point out who said no and who absented, and what their California districts are, because I know we've got some of our people who listen to the show from California, and if you happen to be in one of these, gamers, call your people. Tell them they need to take a second look at this. Now, to be fair, they did unanimously, even the noes and the abstentions, they did unanimously say, hey, come back to us in the next session, and we'll look at it again. But that gives us a chance to be like, hey guys, we, your constituents, we, the gamers, think this is a good idea. We should push it forward. So let me just real quick throw out the no votes. That's Senator Stephen Choi, District 37. That's it. Shout out to everybody in Irvine, Northwood, and Laguna Niguel. That's your man. Tell him in District 37 you want this. Senator Roger Nalio, that's District 6. That's Eastern Sacramento, so Roseville, Lincoln, Rancho Merida. He's your guy. Third and final no vote was Senator Tony Strickland, District 36. That's Cerritos and Huntington Beach down to San Clemente. These are some of the places I used to live near. Anyway, tell Strickland that he should go there. But I see those eyebrows. My old district, District 42, fighting 42nd, was yes, of course, so we don't have to worry about that. Now the abstentions, because remember, it's like a no, so we need to tell them that this is what we want. So Senator Bob Archuleta out of District 30, that's Downey, Norwalk, Whittier, and the Heights neighborhoods. He's your guy. Tell him, say yes. Senator Tim Grayson out of District 9, that's east of Alameda, where they keep the nuclear vessels, as you know. So Concord, Pleasant Hill, Antioch. We've got Senator Caroline Menivar. I ruined her name. Sorry about that. And that's District 20. That's Burbank and San Fernando Valley. So shout out there. And then last but most certainly not least, she also abstained. Senator Lola Smallwood, Senator Smallwood. I'm sorry. District 28. That's the southeast of downtown LA. So Culver City, Hyde Park, that sort of thing. These people do need to be told that we as video gamers find this important, and we would appreciate their support the next time this comes up, because an abstention is as good as a no, and especially given the developments right now, we need this sort of thing more than ever. And so shout out to everybody who lives in those neighborhoods. Lend us your ears, call your senators, let them know. Okay, that's news bit for today.
Love it. That's been news. And back to you, Mac.
And back to me! Oh, for some video game history. Excellent. Lom, thank you so much. Sorry for stealing some of that thunder. Let's talk some history. This last couple of weeks and years before have been some of the fantastic times. I just want to punch through a couple of quick ones. 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis. Not only was it a good title, I'd say transformative, but also it was the best-selling game of 1991. Now, to be fair though, nice guy, it was also a pack-in title for a lot of the Sega Genesis. So, you didn't have to, I don't believe you had to get Sonic the Hedgehog, but I believe it did come with a lot of the standard options. So it's like a good chunk of those sales counted for that. But there were still plenty of people who bought it on their own, and so we are talking bestseller. So yeah.
I was just curious. I looked up other games that came out in 1991. Looks like A Link to the Past came out in 1991.
Yeah.
Just to give y'all an idea of how well Sonic sold, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, iconic for me. I know you were a Super Nintendo guy. I was obviously a Genesis guy, but yet, we sing Kumbaya. Let's see. Another one that came out the few years back, we've got in 2016 a little game called Inside, which was released for the modern consoles. Now, Lum, this is one that you very much were like, Mac, you gotta try Inside. I think you might have even gifted me a copy, I believe.
I believe I did, and I'm a huge fan of the side-scrolling nightmare, not nightmarish, but like kid in a terrible spot trying to escape weapons, limbo, inside, that stuff. What'd you think about it?
Man, I had a great time of it. I mean, obviously it was very sort of somewhat surreal, as you kind of thought that you knew what was going on for most of the game, and then with each sort of step it had that very environmental storytelling. I really liked it. I think I preferred Limbo to Inside, but Inside was still great stuff. Yeah, pretty fantastic. One last one, unless you wanted to say anything else about Inside.
No, great game. Play it.
Great game. Play it, then go outside. Last, but most certainly not least, it released in 2004, the Mega Man Anniversary Collection. Anything Mega Man I always have to mention. There was, sadly, a plan at the same time to do a release of Mega Man's 1 through 5 from the Game Boy onto the Game Boy Advance, but we did not get that then, which is just a darn shame. And it was going to be a remaster. It was going to be a remaster the whole way for the Game Boy Advance, with colors, with wider aspect ratios, with all sorts of the cool things. And I'm a little sad, but hey, that's how it goes sometimes.
You may know, if you're a Game Boy collector like me, Mega Man 5, the only original, completely original Mega Man game on the Game Boy that doesn't incorporate any of the levels from the NES games.
Yeah, that was completely original, wasn't it?
Yeah, hard to find, very expensive. So yeah, it would have been cool to get that remastered.
Yeah, and they had like unique boss robots and everything in there.
Completely unique game.
Dude, so cool, so cool. Well, nice guy, that's what I had for history for us today. Thanks for going with me on that journey down memory lane.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, y'all know what we're going to talk about next, right? I mean, there is no surprise. Let's just dive in. This is our topic of the week, where we talk about something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it. And Mac, I'm just going to kind of summarize what's been going on, and then we will reference one or two news stories. Sony announced that in January 2028, they will stop releasing physical games for their consoles. Now, there's so many questions that arise from this, but ultimately, I think that we all have some thoughts on this. You know, those of us who have been advocates for physical media for some time. I do want to reference this story from IGN, and then I do want to reference something about Xbox, and then I just want to hear your thoughts broadly on what's going on and what it means for the future of gaming. So this is on IGN.com, written by Wesley and Poole. An independent retailer has launched a petition calling on Sony to reverse its decision to ditch discs on PlayStation consoles, garnering over 115,000 signatures so far. P&P Games, a Canadian independent video game retailer, launched a Change.org petition asking fans to join in telling Sony to keep physical games. At the time, there's that many signatures, like I said. Sony sparked a significant backlash last week when its decision to do away with video game discs, I can't read today, on PlayStation consoles in 2028. Sony's heavily criticized announcement hit the mainstream, with the likes of KFC, Domino's, and even celebrity comedians dunking on it. And then they've come under fire from developers too, Mac. The other thing I wanted to mention in relation to Xbox is that they've kind of said they're going to do the same thing, but they will also be piloting a program that will allow physical media to be turned into digital media. And I think that it's completely related to what's going on here. In the future, as of now, it seems like Nintendo will be the only one of the big three that will continue to do physical media. What are your thoughts?
Are we entirely sure that's the case? After all, Nintendo did recently shift over to, what did they call them, key cartridges, as opposed to an actual physical data. It's just the key for it.
They've done that for some games, but I know for a fact that there are some games that still have a physical cartridge, because I have the Switch too. So there's some that still do have the physical cartridge.
Excellent.
This also lines up, Mac, with GTA. Just one more talking point as you're sharing your thoughts with us, right? Last week, Grand Theft Auto announced that they're not going to have physical discs in their physical version. They are going to have a code, so you could go buy the physical version of Grand Theft Auto 6 and then download it, or you can just buy it digital. So
yeah, it certainly is the way that winds are blowing. We will probably see Nintendo ditching physical as well. I mean, who knows, though? Maybe enough people will raise enough of a stink about this that it won't happen. There was a point in time when Xbox said that it was, that if you wanted to not be always online, you could not buy the new Xbox and instead just have the Xbox 360. There was a time when Xbox said they weren't going to have discs, and then Sony said, hey, here's how we share games. And that certainly shifted things. I thoroughly encourage you guys to make your dissatisfaction known, because it does actually have impacts. But yeah, I will say I am very frustrated because of what we know and, especially what we don't know, nice guy. Like, I have so many questions about, like, how this works in a thing. Like, are we expecting a PlayStation 6 anytime soon?
It made me wonder if this aligns with the release of the PlayStation 6. That was one of my talking points for later. Why January of 2028? I understand it will take some time to stop production of these physical discs, but I just think that that's a very specific...
Absolutely. It got me thinking, okay, so January, that's our PlayStation 6, I suppose. And if so, we can probably say that the PlayStation 6 is going to be, discless. But they kind of threw a flashbang into a room full of people, and then they haven't said anything since. Like, you've said that Microsoft has said that they're going to do a sort of pilot program about allowing you to, spin up your games and convert them into a digital license or a digitally playable game. We don't know if Sony's doing anything like that. What kind of path forward does that look like if you buy a PlayStation 6? How are you going to spin up your stuff? Are you going to have to spin it up on a PS5 in your account and do like an account migration type thing? Or are they really asking you to like buy a completely separate digital license? What's the distribution channels going to look like for like game codes? Are we going to have to purchase everything inside of the PlayStation Store, at the PlayStation Store only, nowhere else, never any place else? I mean, GameStop's hanging on by a thread, Mr. Nice Guy. I don't know if it can handle not having the PlayStation codes.
Well, they've moved into retro, so maybe they start doing more retro. But one of the biggest takeaways that I thought about when I heard this news is maybe Valve isn't so crazy after all. Like, I thought the Steam machine at $1,000 was absolutely ridiculous, but Valve has really tricked us for a long time into thinking that we own our games. Valve has been all digital, always and forever, and no one has ever complained about it. Like, we wait for Steam sales, but now Sony and Microsoft are doing it. It's almost kind of a double standard on our part that people are frustrated by, who are also Steam users. But here's why I think it makes Valve not so crazy. And I think that Valve probably knew... I want to hear your thought, but I just want to finish this thought real quick. I think that Valve probably knew that Sony and Microsoft were going to go all digital. And that's why they priced this the way they did. Because if the Xbox and the PlayStation 6 or 10th gen are priced similarly, people may shift to the Steam machine and say, hey, if it's going to be all digital anyway, I'm going to go with good guy Valve that has always done right by us and that has that experience being all digital. Maybe they're not so crazy after all.
Unlike sometimes where we come together and Lom is telling me something, I'm hearing it for the first time ever. Like, this one is one that I, had some time to think about. But, like, I will say that I think, like, all of those sorts of, like, questions that are in our heads, questions that we posed logistically, most of those would be basically non-issues if there were really consumer protections, like what Stop Killing Games and such has been pushing for. If there was an actual, like, any type of customer guarantee to access, the unanswered questions wouldn't be really hanging in the head in that way, We wouldn't be wondering. We'd be like, oh, hey, well, it's already got it. But, like, there is a thing that, just to throw out there, I'm old enough. I'm old enough to remember when Sony, deleted 500 or so different titles from off of your purchases in the PlayStation Store. No, I'm not talking about 8 days ago, Mr. Nice Guy. Not 8 days ago. I'm older than 8 days. No, I'm not talking about 2023, Mr. Nice Guy. I'm older than 2020. I'm not talking about 2021, Mr. Nice Guy. I'm older than that. But, like, I'm old enough to remember that PlayStation, and this is especially why it's very concerning, because Sony definitely has a long history of removing stuff that you bought a license for. I know that is the reality of digital purchases, but they've done that in a way that, like you're saying, Valve has not really done that sort of thing, which, to your point, is very much gives us a lot more confidence in Valve doing it right. So I think I'm saying I think you're right.
Well, and I am agreeing with you, because to back up your point, and I probably should have added this in the other two stories that I just started with. On the PlayStation blog, 6 days ago, Sony announced that they will be shutting down the PS3 and PS Vita stores globally by July of 2027. If you had digital stuff on your PlayStation 3 or your Vita, you will no longer be able to get it from those stores. Which, I mean, that makes the obvious question is, well, then why would I ever buy a digital console from you? Because I know that at some point you're going to shut it down. And you've shown that over and over and over again.
I mean, and like we said, like, if, for example, you knew that all game platforms, all video game things would be allowed when they were going to take it away from you, that they had to leave it in some way or give you the data so that you could back it up yourself and play it on your own side, we wouldn't have to be worried about this. It'd be a non-issue. You know, we wouldn't be worried about losing the physical discs. Now, I feel like, you know, we mostly deal in like MP3s, we mostly listen to our music through streaming, but we can still buy, we can still buy an LP, we can buy a record if we want. You can still buy cassette tapes if you want, compact discs. Though the medium has very much moved on from the older storage media, you can still get those for the enthusiasts, for people who you want. PlayStation has a really tight control over that library and over that distribution, and if they're not making it, doesn't exist anymore. It's concerning. I'll say it's concerning.
This is literally a whole podcast, so I'll end with this. I saw something, I think it was on YouTube, and I wish I could remember who said this so I could give them credit where credit is due, but I thought it was a really great take. It was something to the effect of, if having digital games isn't ownership, then piracy isn't stealing. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I don't know if you saw that take as well.
I have seen that take, yeah.
And I just thought it was super interesting, because if we don't own our digital games, then how can game companies be mad at those who choose to pirate stuff if it's not a product and it's not a commodity, and they can take it away at any moment? So I thought that was unique, and this sucks. I hope that they reverse this decision.
Couldn't say it better myself. It sucks. They should reverse.
That's been our topic of the week.
I'm going to cut that bit in post, because I literally said I can't say it better myself, and then it did it anyway. Well, hey, everybody, let's go for something a little bit more lighthearted. Let's take a look at something that's trying to get off of the ground, a little project we call Kick or Kick Start, because it shows up on Kickstarter. It's a joke. This is Temple Maker 64. I've dropped a link in the chat, and let me just quickly walk you through this. Something that should be pretty clear off the back is the inspirations. So solo dev Kella Morse has a very deep love of the Zelda games on the Nintendo 64, and it shows in this love letter, in this Unity project, running on the Unity engine that allows people to make their own dungeons inspired by that style. So while it is a video game, it is also a 3D platformer maker in the style of the Nintendo 64. For anybody who spent more than 5 seconds looking at this, yes, this is very, very much meant to evoke the dungeons of Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. And at the current time. It is sitting at 36,000, which exceeded its 34,000 goal for this solo dev. It still has about a day and a half left. So if you're interested in getting in on the Kickstarter now, you still can. There was an early bird price for a digital copy upon release, which was $15, but those early birds are gone. So now the minimum is $19 for this. Actually, it's probably a little bit, I think it might be a little bit more. No, it's still the Disciple, yeah, $19 US. And the estimated delivery for this is May of next year. So a little bit more time to get some polish on this. There is one other thing I want to just throw out there before I ask you, nice guy, but one of the things that it very, very prominently features is a playable demo, and with it, many custom dungeons that have been built by the community already for people to try out. If you do go looking for videos, you'll see people who've played these various custom maps. Some of them definitely troll maps for sure, and others of them a little bit more of a shall we say wholehearted approach. But yeah, nice guy. Does this strike you? And if so, how? Oh, and also quick shout out to Alex Man. This was already on the queue, but it was very kind of Alex Man to bring it up in the Discord. I would have hated to have missed this otherwise. So thanks for looking out, buddy.
Yeah, I'm responding to one of our chat questions real quick. So here are my thoughts on this. I think it looks awesome, first of all. I really, really like that we're getting more and more of this stuff. Just different stuff where people can make stuff in the style of their favorite old games. The thing I worry about with this is, number one, in 64 graphics. I get why you went that route. It's the most popular, one of the most popular Zeldas ever made that in that style. So I get that. Part of the appeal of Zelda to me is that they're open world. Even when you're playing Link's Awakening, yeah, you do the dungeons in a certain order, but you can explore. And then you do a dungeon, and that's kind of like the linear, quote-unquote, linear part of the game. I just wonder how much appeal a game will have that is strictly dungeons, where there's no exploring, where there's no, like, hey, let's go do this little side quest, where, okay, I can breathe. I'm not just going from room to room, but I'm hitting chickens with my sword, and I'm talking to NPCs, and that breaks up the tempo of the game. That's my one concern.
Now, counterpoint is that from a game design standpoint, there is almost no difference between mechanically a dungeon or a town. Or even big things, although usually your roof is painted skybox, or things like that. Now, I don't know a lot because I haven't made games in that many things, but like that was how things were handled in like Left 4 Dead when you were building maps for that, when you were building maps for most anything, a game that has a skybox and feels open is mostly just a little bit of an illusion, and not that different from dungeons itself. And so I don't know. I don't know what the limitations quite are yet of Temple Maker 64, but I suspect that it will probably be very capable of allowing you to build places that feel like a town square. And places for you to go into and move around. I don't think that this will... but who knows? Who knows? It might, but I don't think that is an inherent shortcoming of this project.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I don't want to be overly critical of this. I really, really liked Super Mario Maker, and just seeing this actually makes me want to dive back into it, 1 and 2. And so like I'd like, this is $19, dude. A lot of times I'd be like, nope, this should be 15, this should be 12. But when you're playing something that if it has the right type of community, it can have infinite content. And and by the way, one of the super cool things about Mario Maker is that it was popular enough that Maddie Makes Games, like people who made games like Celeste, would go in and make their levels, and they'd say, hey, here's the code, community, go play the level that the person who made Celeste, made in Mario Maker. So I think that this type of thing has the same potential. I really like this.
Yeah, same. Obviously, we wish the best for everybody. It's a solid kickstart from me. Yeah, sounds like kickstarts all around, yeah?
% I hope that this succeeds, and I like that they're not rushing it.
Yeah, give the demo a try, and we'll see you guys on the other side. That's been Kicker Kickstart.
Fantastic. Well, Mac, you know what time it is. Chat, you know what time it is. It's time for a segment we like to call Nerd Flex. A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the host. Sometimes you do, sometimes you do not. Mac, you have something you want to say.
Absolutely. It's a sound test episode, y'all, which means we say goodbye to the sound test for episode 343. Lom, do you want to take a final crack at episode 343 and see if you can identify it?
So this is from 343, and Mac, you know what we should have you do? Tell us what era this is from, or what console this game is on.
Yeah, sure. This would be
Get a shot without that first, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Okay, you got it.
Who wants to be a millionaire? Me, actually.
It sounded like a monster, like some type of, almost like Lord of the Rings, Where's My Precious type of character. I'm trying to think what type of game that could be. Do you want to give me that hint and tell me what system or what gen?
This actually straddles two systems. It originally released on the Nintendo 64, and it had a remaster on the Xbox.
Okay, so I'm going to go with, and this may be completely off, but I'm going to go with Gauntlet Dark Legacy.
Solid guess. You're wrong, but you're not too frightfully far off. We're talking Conker's Bad Fur Day, or as it was on the Xbox, Conker Live and Reloaded.
Okay, fair. And then am I doing this as well?
Yeah, this is for today. 383. For the next 10 sound tests, y'all have a chance to do this. Lom, go for it. I think you're gonna know this immediately.
I'm not gonna say it out loud though. Oh yeah, I think I definitely know what that's from.
Yep, you do. You do. Remember, these things, if you can identify them, there's a gift handmade from me sent to your door. Just let us know on the socials. Well, thank you for that diversion. Now it's time for that nerdy trivia. Get your guesses in the chat.
So let me press random a few times and see if we can get to one of those new ones. What arcade game was created entirely to retrofit unsold stock of the failed game Radar Scope? What arcade game was created entirely to retrofit unsold stock of the failed game Radar Scope? Interesting.
So I've never heard of Radar Scope, so we are talking failed arcade game for sure. It's I know nothing about Radar Scope.
Sounds like it's something where the guns were retrofitted to go onto this new game. I have no idea. This is actually great.
Radar Scope sounds like something like might be a submarine, might need a submarine, like a periscope or something. I feel like there was an early arcade game with a periscope that was called something like Shooting Solution or something like that.
Dude, I'm not going to go House of the Dead because I know House of the Dead was not made as a result of a bad game, but it was a shooter. So let's go with what you said. No way! It says the answer is Donkey Kong.
Seriously?
I don't think that's right.
Okay.
Did you use AI to make these questions?
No, I do not use AI to make questions. I do not trust its reliability for anything factually based. We will have to look that up later, but tentatively, the best kind of trivia question that we get wrong, at least, is the time when we learn something. So,
and by the way, Mac mentioned this. If you guys that are here live want to put questions in the chat, please do. Mac and I will use nothing but our noggins to try to answer. Mac, here's the next orange question. Which handheld console was the first to be backwards compatible?
My guess is that it's going to be... I guess it depends on what we define as backwards compatible. But I think that it's different enough that it probably counts. I'm going to say I'm torn either Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Color. I don't know what is there because, like, I just don't know of any other game company that made more than one handheld. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the thing is I'm pretty sure it was the Game Boy Color is my thought. But like you said, if it's something odd that we weren't expecting, then that's where we would get strung up. So I'm going to go Game Boy Color.
Okay, and I'll go Game Boy Advance just to cover bases.
And it was indeed the Game Boy Color.
Excellent.
And let's get one more. We'll do this special round. Name 3-word games. Now, here's the thing I'm not sure if what it's saying is it asking us for 3-word games or 3-word games? I believe it wants us to name 3-word games.
Okay, so, like, there's, like, Scrabble. That's a word game, and we've got video game versions of it.
And I'm sure there's probably like crossword puzzles.
Oh yeah, like New York Times crossword. Yeah, they've got an app for that.
What's the one that people do daily where they're trying to figure out?
Wordle.
That's a word game.
And dude, over the weekend, I nailed 2 Wordles in a row. The friend who was visiting was like doing the Wordle, and I got it both times. They didn't exhaust their attempts, but they were like, I can't figure this one out, and bam, nailed it and won each time. It was great.
Love it, love it, love it.
Well, that's 3, but I feel like there's definitely more.
I'm trying to think.
I mean, I guess it depends how, when we were going to school, there were all sorts of like old school games that were like roughly educational for us to play on the computers.
I remember playing Mario Teaches Typing. I remember my parents doing that for me. That was a good word game.
Oh, dude. Then Mavis Beacon teaches typing, because I know that one as well.
Let's see what's listed on the back here. Scrabble, Words with Friends, Wordle, and Spell Tower are the ones listed here. We definitely got...
We did. Nice. Well done, us. Well, now we turn to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
You may have listened to the short episode that we put out because we didn't make it at last week. This, of course, I said we'd talk a little bit more about Garcia Guire v. Samsung Electronics. This is the antitrust class action suit covering both modern and retro because it alleges that much like they did in the early 2000s and allegedly because they did plead guilty in the early 2000s, but the alleged part is in the 20-teens that Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron are up to their old shenanigans and are price fixing the prices of RAM, which of course leads to all sorts of things. We don't really have that much time, and I was hoping that we would get an answer from Sony or from the people, but like that's gonna be a while because all we have right here is what Garcia Guire and those people contend, what they say. They've put forward their strongest argument, their best foot. They've put this out there and they've said, this is our thing. It's 118 pages of a lawsuit. And, I'm still working through the last about 30 pages or so. But in essence, I think that they make a very good argument for these guys falling back into the same cycles and problems that they've been found guilty of pled guilty to in the early 2000s and were not quite convicted of in the 20-teens, that they're doing it again here. And while I did read the entirety of Section 5 on the short episode that was published last week, overall, it does keep that general sort of tone. But I do want to add some other stuff that has come to light since sharing that. Samsung is slated to post $217 billion in operating profit this year, which would make its operating profit in this year of 2026 alone more operating profit than it has made over the entire lifespan of the company. So the cumulative profits of Samsung since its creation will be exceeded by just the profits of this year alone. It does make you wonder how an 18-fold increase in profits is even possible and not a little hinky. And then if we also tack on the stuff that we learned from Valve when they were talking about the fallout from the Steam machine and the high prices that people weren't expecting, Valve's Pierre-Luc Graphius said, and I'll just quote him here from his interview with Gamers Nexus, quote, "Look, there's no contracts. There's nothing. These guys, they give us a price every month or something, and they say, you can buy that many. It's yes or no. And if we say no, they never talk to us again." End quote. And that was what he said about getting components, RAM, for the Steam machine. That everybody has their prices so high that they either take it or leave it and walk away. And of course, their contention here in this lawsuit is that this is market manipulation and collusion in order to set these prices so high. And again, against the backdrop of you were convicted of doing it in the 2000s, you pled guilty to doing it in the 2000s, and you were not quite convicted of it in the 2010s, why wouldn't we expect you'd pull it again in the 2020s? I encourage you to read it if you've got 118 pages in ya. But for those of you who don't, maybe that's just some legalese.
Just listen to Mac's summary that he just did, and then play some video games. Mac, thank you for that. That's super interesting. The idea that the RAM prices artificially inflated, not a crazy premise, right?
More profits than your company has produced cumulatively in its 50-year history. Seems suspicious.
Yeah, man, and I don't need to dive deeper, but that is very interesting. So, well, thank you everyone for tuning in to episode 383 of Two Nerds in a Pod. Before we go, we're going to talk about what we've been watching and what we've been playing. That's our last segment, and as you know, we love to hear from you too because we're always looking for cool, nerdy stuff. And Mac, I would also like to hear from the chat if they have purchased anything from the Steam sale or plan to, and what that is, because I'm looking for some deals. I'm looking for something new. Mac, what have you been watching and playing, reading, listening to, sir?
Let me open with the Steam sale question. I haven't bought anything on this Steam sale. However, shout out to my friend Dan, with whom I tend to play games. We tend to play co-op on the weekends together. He actually bought me a copy of a game called Valheim and sent it over. It was on sale for $10. He says it's a fun one. He's put some hours in and wants to put in some hours together. Looking forward to it, but that's forward-looking. Game-wise, haven't really played much, but finished off Subnautica Below Zero, which means it's time to get started on Subnautica 2. And then what I've mostly been watching, got on an anime train this week with a little anime, only run 13-episode run called, was it If I May Ask One Final Question, One Final Favor. Anyway, I don't even remember the name because it's been so quick, but just completely went through that. Very, very fun, very violent in the best of ways. And I also watched Chicago, the musical, for the first time ever this week, which is a little bit surprising, given my high school extracurriculars. But yeah, first time ever watching it. So what about you, dude?
Well, been playing a lot of Teamfight Tactics. We went up to like this little amusement park, and I got the opportunity to hit some retro game stores on the way back. Picked up a copy of, I didn't even think about this till now, but Joe and Mac is the name of the game on the original Game Boy.
Hey!
And it is not that great a game, but it's one that I wanted as part of my collecting journey. So been playing a little bit of that on my analog pocket, and that's it, man. I haven't like you, I haven't had as much time to game. I am reading a good amount of things. I've been reading Morningstar, which is the third book in the Red Rising trilogy, and I am very, very much enjoying it and listening to some pods. Mac, I'm curious from you. I know you got Valheim, which, by the way, it really is a great game. Anything that you're thinking about picking up in the Steam sale?
But nothing that's really catching my eye yet.
That reminds me, I actually have also been playing Grand Theft Auto 4. And that is fun. Because I never played that before. So thinking I want to get through that before 6. And Mac, that is what I've had time for.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out and being part of the show, helping to make episode 383 what it was. Remember to keep those ears open for the sound tests. Let us know if you know. And be sure to join us next week. Usual time, most Mondays at 7 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central here at twitch.tv/2nerdsinapod. And remember to be excellent to each other and keep it nerdy, y'all. Laters.
Deuces. See ya.